you very much for having me today, this evening, on this topic of AI and ethics. And thank you, Professor Casina, for your very insightful talk. I'll probably pick on from the last question that you helped address. And this topic of AI and machine learning and engineering ethics has been top of my mind, although I'm a technologist. But this presentation will probably have almost zero technical material. So I just wanted to set expectations for that. But having said that, it's something top of my mind, and I think it's something that increasingly needs to be addressed by the engineering, scientific, and technologist community, amongst others. It's not just limited to them. So so I have worked in AI and ML in the past, and less so now. So I wanted to share certain perspectives on AI, ML, and on engineering, because I think is absolutely important. Now, just to start off with a quote from Albert Einstein. So when we talk about artificial intelligence, when we talk about machine learning, I see AI really as a marketing term, a lot of times used for ML, right? Of course, also used in other contexts. But the key thing is, and this is a very profound statement that I've always found very useful, is that the true sign of intelligence is not just raw knowledge, but it's imagination. We as human beings are very imaginative, and it helps us in a number of aspects, which I'll come to the next few slides. And imagination is really the glue, in my opinion, that binds intelligence, what we call as intelligence, and what we denote as creative, that is the ability to conceive new concepts and so on. And intelligence is our ability to use existing tools and know-how and knowledge. And it's really imagination that binds both of these things. So let me explain a little more about that, and then as we get into this topic of it. Today's machine learning is primarily, I've just oversimplified it, but it's primarily based off the processing of raw data by algorithms, right? There's a lot of math involved. There are lots of assumptions of math involved. There's a lot of processing of data. And the algorithms are constructed based on mathematical formulations, which require you perhaps to optimize a cost function, some form, or to perform some sort of classification. Whatever it is, it's a bunch of raw data feeding to algorithms to generate a desired output. That's knowledge, right, in my opinion. That's not imagination. Right? And imagination is completely different and requires a huge thing. So when we use this term artificial intelligence in this context, let's not forget the pieces of imagination and why that is very important. What makes us human and distinct from AI, in my opinion, is compassion and empathy. And that is what really makes us distinct as intelligent beings, as creative beings. Compassion takes imagination. And what do I mean by that? Imagination allows us this ability to project ourselves in the past, in certain contexts, also allows us to project now ourselves in the future as well, right? So it gives us this ability to visualize or to reflect on certain situations either in the past or project in the future, and put ourselves in another person's shoes or another environment or contextual shoe, so to speak, and evaluate the situation from that standpoint. And that's how you build empathy and compassion. That's integral to human, right? And this is not something I don't know. I have not heard of any artificial system that's been able to emulate either imagination, the true sense of humans, and more so taking the next leap of faith into empathy and compassion. Now, why am I bringing all these topics in an IEEE conference. Let me take the next step. In the words of Dr. Albert Schweitzer, who was a very famous physician and, of course, medical doctor, right? Let's focus on this. So compassion, right, is where ethics takes root, right? And it can only attain the full measure of breadth and depth, right, as long as it encompasses all living beings, not restricted to just humankind. And this is really a crux of building an ethical human society, which is not only imaginative and creative, which has be able to extend itself to become compassionate, on which ethics is. And an ethical human society really is based on compassion. And that includes us, each one of us, whether we are engineers, economists, scientists, technologists, it doesn't matter. Right? This is a core ingredient for humans. This is what makes us distinct. This is what enables us to identify ourselves with our surrounding and our environment. So I have the next two slides. I have taken a reference from a brilliant presentation by Kai-Fu Lee, expert in AI and ML tech talks. Taken the liberty, given the credit, to reproduce these two elements over here. Now, why am I bringing this element of tying all compassion and ethics? The reason is as follows. A lot of our job functions today, right, have dimensions where compassion is needed. For example, in elderly care, teachers, social workers, event planners, where a lot of creativity and strategy is required. For example, scientists, artists, perhaps CEOs, so on. Then there is also the element where there's a lot of quote unquote optimization required, routine work, right? Where perhaps the elements of creativity may be less, but still compassion is needed at various dimensions. So it could be customer support, could be telesales operation, could be radiologists looking at the cancer scan. And in my opinion, I think the more we start thinking about AI, the more we start looking at its applications, I think these are areas which are worth pursuing first, because humans, we are not built for routine, mundane work, right? We have been trained due to our education and schooling systems over the last 100, 200 years, right, to accept that as de facto, routine, mundane work a lot of time. We ignore the facets of imagination and creativity, right, as we focus just on work. I think this is where AI, quote unquote, compassionate AI, right, helps to free humans from just routine optimized work, where we can now bring about delineation of boundaries as to where AI is applicable as a centerpiece and where AI is an additional tool. So what do I mean by that? So let me term AI as rather artificial intelligence as more as augmented intelligence for an ethical human society, where based on these different functions and dimensions of compassion, of the need for strategy, of thinking, of creativity, based on the need for routine optimized work, right? AI can fit into this and interoperate with humans in different ways, as opposed to just one single monochromatic version, where AI could, as on its own function, routine optimized work, where its blast radius is quote unquote is limited, where more compassion is needed, like in healthcare workers, it's wrapped within the bounds and control of human activity as an aid or assistant, where creativity and imagination is a little more needed. It works with humans to augment the ability and creativity of humans, provide new data sets that allow humans to make better decisions or think of new creative. This is what I mean by augmented intelligence. Now, why am I bringing all these things together? because it's very important. I think Professor Katina talked about control in the previous session, like related to implantable devices, some of the challenges related. As we look at increasing the scope of AI, right, in these various dimensions, it's very important for us as technologists, scientists, and leaders to help define the barriers as to and the guardrails as to where all this stuff is really going to relate to various features and functions. So in today's context, I mean, if you bring me to a webinar, as some of you know, I will always bring in elements related to not just human activities, but related to the environment, natural world, and of course, the present day challenges of climate action, right? So I feel that there are essential guardrails which are needed. What are they? Okay, few things that I have listed here. When it comes to human activities, we saw the last presentation on implantable devices. The guardrails are required for data privacy and governance. Right? Without these guardrails, we are seeing today a lot of data being used, a lot of data being manipulated. It can cause a lot of unconscious social conditioning, which we are seeing in social media, in retail, for example, even in your recommendation engines, kind of start recommending the same things again and again. Right? This removes the variability and the beauty of spontaneity of human action, in my opinion, in my own personally. Surveillance is good in one way, but you don't want a big brother on the other side. I think Professor Katina talked about that in an earlier presentation. Another guardrail, right, where against data bias, against race, religion, gender, politics, culture, right? Else this can lead to social profiling, artificial economic barriers being created just because of the situation in which you were born or raised, right? Some samples of these are insurance and financing, which are leveraging some of this, create barriers via pricing mechanisms, which sometimes is unethical. Reinforcement of unconscious bias, right? In echo chambers, we see that very heavily in any form of social media today, and perhaps some of that happening live today as we speak. In addition to that, it's so important for us as we look at AI as a solution is transparent algorithms and diverse data sets. I think diverse data sets are well understood, but transparent algorithms, when you look at a neural network as a set of weights, it becomes very challenging to figure out what exactly is going on. And then various applications of AI. The first and foremost that worries me the most is the application in military applications, right? Where remember, these are machines, these are programmed, whether you use computer vision, various types of sensors, it does not have empathy, it does not have compassion. We lose that element as well as we use this increasingly in warfare and military applications. Something to safeguard against. Climate action. Why do I bring this? Internet communication technologies are the fastest growing element of electricity consumption across the entire spectrum of electricity domain. Right? There's a great MIT technology review article on the carbon emissions related to deep learning and the significant impact that it has. This is also an ethical aspect. As we intrude various algorithms and compute algorithms all over the place to the edge and beyond, right? Somebody has to pay the energy cost. So it's important for us that while we find use cases to do this, we focus on efficiency as well. Environmental impact assessment, right? We need to ensure that whatever be the use cases that we come up with, I'm sure over the last 2 days, there have lots of use cases being stated. It does not degrade further the natural environment that it depends on, right? And it does not cause per capita increase in resources. Should go the other way, right? As much as possible, and safety aspects. So there are so many. There are these 3 pillars that I feel while we look at ethics and AI, while we look at augmented intelligence, that these are things that we focus on. Now, why do I bring this energy imbalance and climate change? I think everyone knows about this, that we have, the climate crisis today is because of an energy imbalance that creates. What I really want to focus on is, while we look at increasing scope of AI, increasing scope of gathering various bits of data all across, whether it be via 5G networks, via implantable devices, proximity sensors to collect data, whether you're in proximity to edge devices that collect data, please assess the energy footprint, right? Because ICT is the largest growing footprint related to energy consumption from electricity point of view. And if we do not address this, we are going to be compounding and adding to this problem, right? We are generating various data sets via images, videos, whatever be it, via biosensors, anything, right? Unless we address this, we are going to put ourselves in significant challenge. This is an ethical challenge for the use case of AI as well, in my opinion. That's something that we have to look at, right? As responsible technology scientists and engineers. How do we address this, right? In the words of Nelson Mandela, education is the most powerful weapon we can use to change the world. Just because we are in industry doesn't mean that we don't need to get education, right? Just because we have degrees. I think as we develop AI systems as for various use cases, I feel three things need to happen, right? The first thing is, there are so many advertisements and there's so much encouragement given for young students and children today in advertisements on TV, especially in India, to get into coding and all kinds of stuff. I think folks in India will understand what I'm talking about, right? The advertisement that comes between the overs of a cricket match. I think we all know what I'm talking about, right? But we are not educating our students on the importance of compassionately using technology with our limited resources on this planet that will allow us to thrive in harmony with our natural environment, whatever technology that we use. And since AI has an increasing footprint, there needs to be a focus on this as well. Okay? So how do we do this? Few ideas that I have is, the UN Sustainable Development Goals to be distilled and disseminated in schools at various levels, right? Now, engineers, economists, and scientists, while we learn math, while we learn stochastic systems, Markov processors, all that is all wonderful stuff, right? It's equally important for us to learn humanities, arts, culture, physical sciences, right? Which allows us to develop increasing empathy towards society and the natural world. We are developing AI perhaps as a means of convenience, but we have this one planet to live on, right? And one natural world to coexist in. Let's not screw things up even further, right? Now, corporates that employ AI and ML, right? It's not enough to hire smart engineers or technologists or scientists who know nifty algorithms, right? Or who can craft out, all kinds of various applications. It needs to be melded with social scientists and environmental experts, educating engineering teams, right? This policing and enforcement is a difficult task. The best thing comes if everyone is educated and builds up the necessary empathy and social empathy across the world, right? So every engineer needs to think, when you are developing an application on AI, what is it that I'm developing for? What's the use case and benefit? And is it harmful to humanity, to the natural world, and increasing towards energy and climate action? All these three are important pillars. I want to revisit this. We are part of IEEE community. This is an IEEE conference, right? The first thing that we have in the IEEE Code of Ethics, I would like to read it out because it is important even in this discussion related to AI. And this is taken from the IEEE Code of Ethics. The first point is, we as engineers and technologists have absolute responsibility to hold paramount the safety, health, and welfare of the public, to strive to comply with ethical design and sustainable development practices. A lot of times we have forgotten these two things, ethical design and sustainable development practices, to protect the privacy of others and to disclose factors that might endanger the public or the environment. As being part of IEEE community, we have signed up for this code of ethics, and it is incumbent on us to follow this in regular engineering, especially in this field of AI and machine learning, because there is a lot of scope for violation, there is a lot of scope for human misbehavior. I say human misbehavior. It is not the fault of the algorithm. It's not the fault of mathematics. It's the fault of human beings in how we apply these tools and technologies in various use cases. That is why we need a holistic assessment with social scientists, environmental experts, and everybody else to make sure that whatever we develop is relevant in a humane and ethical society that we all, I'm sure, aspire to be part of. Okay. As I end, I would like to play a 2-minute video. Okay. This photograph which you see is Earthrise, which is taken by the astronauts of Apollo 8, the first people around the moon. Right? And why I put this picture is AI is having an increasing imprint on our society. It is up to us as engineers and technologists. We cannot rely on government or politicians or somebody else to tell us what to do, what is right. Each one of us has to do what is right. Right? This is our only planet. So whatever we develop from an AI or technology perspective, we need to safeguard that, right? And be it from human footprint or environmental perspective. Okay. So I'm just going to play a short video, and then I will a 2-minute video, and then I will be happy to pass it on to the next speaker or take any questions as they may be. This is that. Yes.